So Amanda is our operations manager, and she is, I must say, she has been one of the reasons that our business has grown like it has, because she's got a mind like a steel trap. So I'm thankful to have her up here because she could answer. Matter of fact, I think she had to come back and lead one of the re-entries. What do you think, Grace?
Anyway, why don't we take any questions that you have? Yeah.
What's the advantage of being on the resident's side and using the policies or whatever as the bad guy? What's the advantage there if you're trying to get rid of them? You know?
You can make the lease or the agreement or your rules the bad guy, and so you don't end up in a confrontation with them.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you're trying to work a solution for them to get out of the property, and that's what you want. I mean, if they're not following the rules and you want them out, that's what a written lease agreement would do for you. And so then you're kind of mediating those terms that are already written in that agreement, and it's not you against them in a confrontation. You're on their side. You're just trying to figure out a way for them to adhere to the rules that you wrote in here.
So to minimize confrontation and do a smooth transition.
And maybe retaliation.
Retaliation.
Sure.
We don't, in Oregon, we don't have we have a really strong tenant base, especially in this area.
Yeah.
Some of our Midwest areas, it's just a different, demographic, and it's just different, and I mean, honestly, different laws. I mean, that's one of the, Bill would say, don't invest out of state if you're not there. We are in all of these locations that we're doing it, you know. In the state of Oregon, if somebody doesn't pay their rent, we can have them out within a month. In Missouri, we're lucky if we can get them out in 3 months. They can rack up a lot of stuff and do a lot of damage in 3 months.
Wow.
So.
Interesting thing, in Oregon, if they leave stuff, you have to store it for at least a month, as I remember. Give them notices. In Missouri, you can put the stuff out on the lawn. So there's a compensation factor.
I don't think it feels very good when they do that, though.
No, but it is a check and balance. Yeah.
You guys still do a lot of student housing, or do you primarily focus on single family?
I'm going to let you answer these questions.
I would say that's your foundation business. So we probably, Bill's Oregon portfolio has quite a bit of student housing in it. In our other markets, we're not necessarily in college towns. Eugene is a unique college town, so that's not really our demographic. Anything we've been buying in Oregon lately, not college. I mean, we've built some new student housing in Eugene, and we've maybe acquired one other in the last 5 years.
Not many.
Yeah, but I mean, we do manage a lot of students in
That rent-to-cost
Eugene.
ratio doesn't work very well now with campus rental properties. So we've kind of moved on to other niches and look for value-add other places. Interestingly enough, we invested in a little town, Emporia, Kansas. Went to the Harvard of the Midwest is there, but that's another story. I went to college there. It's below Stanford, I think, but, well, between Stanford and, I'm not sure. Anyway. It's a teacher's college of about 5,500. The town is only 35,000, all right? But we have found actually places around the university that make sense there that would never be able to be found in Corvallis or in Eugene. It just wouldn't exist. So campus rentals might exist other places, and you could find them there with that same value add feature that I talked about, but they're less likely going to be here right now. Yeah.
You done anything or explored, since it's been close to a year now that Springfield has opened up the ADU rules? Have you?
Amanda's the ADU expert, so.
We actually did know about that, and so I mean, it's something that we're always. I mean, that's always a play. It's expensive, even that they've opened it up. It's expensive to add it after the fact.
Mm-hmm.
So, and new construction also is expensive. So, but I mean, we considered it, but
They can be tiny homes,
Springfield's
too.
changed, and
Yeah.
I mean, Springfield's really come up in the world as far as, you know, what they're offering, and their house prices have gone up significantly as well. So it's hard to find a good deal in Springfield, just like Eugene.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you think campus area apartment housing is oversupplied at present, and how do you think that compares with just whole house?
I wouldn't want to dive into and pay top dollar because, yeah, I do think, you know, the only place that made sense for investors during the downturn starting in 2008 following was campus rental properties around the universities. So you have these big developers realizing that they could still build new stuff around the campus and they could make a good return on it. So many of them dove into that market, and we had these gargantuan buildings like Capstone, over 1,000 bedrooms in that property, built by I think either a Texas developer or an Alabama developer, then sold to a Singaporean group for $118 million. I'm not sure they got a good deal on it, but regardless, I think it is overbuilt. And it's something I would...
And it's a challenge that we are dealing with. We have a lot of smaller multifamilies on campus that actually can go market rent as well. Lots of 1-bedroom and 2-bedroom apartments. And then our little campaign is kind of like live in a home. What a lot of people did was they tore down single-family houses and stuck multifamily in it, and we held on to our single-family houses, which means we have to police a lot of parties and that sort of stuff because we have some of the big party houses on campus. But yeah, it's definitely, I mean, we start our rent up in January and it goes through September. And so our property management team is kind of having their respite and gearing up for next turnover, which basically starts in January.
Yeah, yeah.
I see Eugene and Victoria are fairly small places, but everything else is fairly large metropolitan areas. If you were just now starting over, looking into the Midwest, do you go with a major metropolitan area, or would you go?
I'd go where I had a connection, I would say. I grew up in Kansas after being born in Ohio. My parents navigated to Wichita, Kansas. I had a kind of connection there, although I'd actually never been to Kansas City. And I kind of got there through a series of events. But I was very comfortable in that area of the country because of having grown up there. And if you are from there, you have relatives that live there, or something, I would probably think about that more than strategically thinking, oh, I'll go to a Little Rock or I'll go to Indianapolis because they're really good cash flowing cities, or a Memphis. You know, I wouldn't just pick a city out of the hat, but I would think of who do I know who I might be able to partner with, maybe even a relative or somebody who's from there. That'd be more of the draw that I would have.
I have a couple questions about the refinancing during the first strategy. Banks at that point are still going to only loan 80%?
At best.
Of the appraised value at that point.
Yeah, I did miss that point, which is a really important point. We're looking for banks that will refinance at the appraised value, not at your cost, or even your cost plus rehab, 75% of that, but 75% of their appraised value. And the reason that's so important is because that value is going to be a lot higher than your cost, hopefully, and even what you have into the property all in. Now, that's the seasoning issue for Midwest banks, is that very factor. Oh yeah, they'll loan you 75% all day long of your cost, but they'll only loan you 75% of the LTV on the refinance if it's seasoned for a year. They want to see some kind of track record before they'll refinance on the basis of an appraised value.
And then you're also telling me that there's really no taxes due at that point in the transaction?
Your taxes are due when you sell the property.
So when you refinance, there's no taxes on any of the property?
No, none.
No.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't discover that till a number of years I was into it either, that, oh my gosh, why am I not paying taxes? Oh, that's, yeah, loans are tax-free, pure and simple. Now, they're not without encumbrance. You do have a mortgage you have to pay, and it's oftentimes a higher mortgage because you pulled out more cash than you previously had, so your mortgage might be higher even, but also you can do something with that cash, leverage yourself. Yeah.
To follow up on, I guess we're looking for price properties in the Midwest. Do you use a more tangible figure, like a median price for homes, or do you just base on your connection per se?
I mean, okay, most of what we acquired in Kansas City, which, I mean, if you just want to know the numbers, like from 2011 until now, they own over 400 properties. And those were mostly purchased right off the MLS, most of them foreclosed homes. Indianapolis, which is something we started in 2017, we have a partner there who is an incredible marketer, and we're doing mostly direct to seller and finding incredible deals.
So remember that rent to cost ratio. We're actually buying in lower end markets, medium end lower markets, and middle markets. You know, depending on, the best cash flow is the lowest end markets because you're getting a higher rent to cost ratio there. But we're kind of spreading it out. And I think my preference is to buy a little higher and get less cash flow because they're just, the properties are more solid and your rental base is more solid. It's a little less hassle, the property management. It's not without hassle, but it's a little less. So I'm not a person that's drawn to the war zones at all. And there are plenty of them out there. You get stuff in your email maybe occasionally. You know, somebody's telling me they bought 5 houses for, where was that? Who was that?
It's in Gary, Indiana.
Gary, Indiana, 5 houses for how much was it?
16 grand.
16,000 for 5 houses. Okay, I don't think I could do that because right off the bat I got a feeling where they're at. But how's this buyer doing?
They had renters in 3 of them, and she borrowed like 15 grand to fix them up a little bit, or just cash flowing right out the gate to be able to afford the mortgage for that. So
Yeah.
It was a portfolio loan across all of them. It was kind of granted the appraisals weren't that great, but she bought for 16, and I think it was valued at like 36.
There you go. Now the difficult thing on that is that putting a roof on one of those houses costs the same in Gary, Indiana as it costs in San Francisco, basically. And when a person beats up the house, going to Home Depot in Gary, Indiana, it's going to cost you just as much as going to Home Depot in Seattle.
Exactly.
Right? So you got to be careful because any big hiccup in a house and it's where that's priced at that price is just saying, I'm just going to let that one go. You know? So, yeah.
I have a question. I'm fairly new to Oregon, and I noticed I've always looked for houses around the campus and stuff. But I know there's so many rental properties. You say you own a lot, and there's a lot in Springfield. And I cannot get over how unkept properties are up here. And even close to campus, there's one house I've been driving by all year, there's a street I go down, that literally has had a ladder leaning up against its roof. The lawn is this high. The barbecue, the chairs are still in the front lawn that the students use, so I know it's a rental house. And I'm wondering, as a renter, who do you require to maintain the property? Do you do it, or do you require your tenants to?
We do it on our campus stuff especially, because they wouldn't, I don't think they do, and I'm sorry, college students are not going to buy a lawnmower. They're not even going to pick up their red Solo cups after having a party. Yeah. And it actually, that neighbor relations is huge on campus, and I feel like by providing that service, we're gonna hear less feedback from the neighbors.
They do usually put up their beer pong tables though. They don't want to get it wet. Yeah. Oh. Now, by the way, that could be an opportunity for you. You know,
That's what I'm thinking.
yeah, you contact the owner and you say, "How you doing with your rental property on X number street?" You know. Yeah. Now, probably a campus rental. I've done this very recently. A couple really bad-looking houses close to some of ours. And he's talking about, oh yeah, but I went down to the city and I could put a 20-unit complex there. And so I think the land is worth this. I thought, oh, okay, well, we probably don't have much more to talk about, do we? Of course, to do that, he's got to put underground parking. He's got, he's never going to do it. But still, he sees massive dollar signs, right? So he's not a motivated seller. But there are a lot of motivated sellers out there who don't know what to do with their property. They're moving on in life, and they know that they're not going to go to a realtor and list it with them because they don't want people tramping through their property. They know it's not top of the line, and they to hear from a person like you that they can just sell it to you, that's something they want to take seriously. So, driving for dollars.
So what do you think is maybe a niche in this area, the I-5 corridor, especially Oregon and Washington?
For when you talk about a niche, you're talking about a location niche in this
No, not necessarily. I got what you were saying about those smaller locations. I'm already doing that. Like I already have I'm doing in Aberdeen, for instance, because I'm over the 1%. I don't decide to keep it. I'm just wondering if you had any other niches for this area without going out of state.
I mean, I think you over there, I think a good place to go is smaller houses that people can afford. Affordable housing is a huge, huge, huge issue, and we've seen a big, big, big jump in rent prices over the last 5 years. I know this isn't going to be possible for most everyone probably in this room, but the owner of Hayden, he held out, like he did a development in Cottage Grove, and then he held out a chunk for himself and built like a community of 2-bedroom houses that he rents out and holds all of them. And I think I want to say they're under $1,000 a month. That's not affordable for everyone, but there's tiny home options or smaller home options. And I know Eugene is sort of at odds with itself about wanting to increase the density, but really not allowing, you have to fight your neighbors, and they want it, but not in my neighborhood. So it's hard. It's like conflicting about how to get that through. But I think that would be a great niche if you can figure out how to make that happen.
Yeah, niches are multifaceted because you could have the value add niches we talked about. Location is kind of a niche too. Junction City is not a bad place to look at, focus on. Even Harrisburg. Cottage Grove has come way up, but still that's a little lower than certainly the prices in Eugene. Anywhere you can find that's a little out of the way and focus in on is probably not very many people do. When we wrote, okay, we're back to Emporia, Kansas. You got to look up Emporia; it's quite a place between Wichita and Kansas City, all right. And we wrote letters, direct-to-seller letters. We wrote 408 of them to everybody in Emporia who owned a duplex, a triplex, or a fourplex. We got an avalanche of response because there's not yellow letter campaigns going on in Emporia, Kansas by every investor you can imagine, like in a Dallas or in a Houston. There's so many investors out there writing the same kind of letters, and people have a drawer full who are in financial distress or bankruptcy or tax deferment. They're getting all kinds of letters. But in Emporia, Kansas, people said, wow, I've never gotten anything like this before, So, the group, our investment group that's there, they kind of discovered a niche. It's an out-of-way place that has not been burned over in terms of investor interest. Yeah.
So how do you screen contractors and property management companies?
We won't outsource property management. If we set a boots on the ground operation up, that includes property management.
So you have your own property management license in your firm?
Well, you have to have a
only manage our own properties,
Yeah.
so we're not managing for other people. That doesn't pay the bills, I don't think. And I think that's exactly why you're really unsuccessful with property managers. People want to pay the least amount, and you get what you pay for. Contractors are tough. It's the same challenges in every market. You try them out. You just want to make sure that they have their insurance, are running by the book so that you don't have that come back on you. And sometimes it doesn't work out. But
you can get 2 out of 3. Price, quality, or speed. You pick which 2 you want.
Right.
All right? And that's almost universally true. Over time, you probably want to bring some folks on as employees to run maintenance. I'd say that's the first thing you want to do, is to do maintenance and have maybe an employee or two who's doing some basic turnovers and maintenance. Bigger rehabs are probably going to be, subbed out to a contractor where you're going to need to get bids. One thing I would suggest is that you make sure your contractors are compared apples to apples, so you don't get a bid on their sheet, you have them bid on your sheets. So you are giving contractor A, B, and C the same exact scope of work and saying, bid on my sheets. So I can now compare, what that bathroom is going to cost from this contractor, that one, and the other one, and not have jumbled like different bids that come in a way that's very hard to compare. Yeah.
So would you suggest, for a smaller investor such as myself, who wants some buy and holds, but I really don't want a second job managing the things, would you suggest, I've always thought that I would get a property manager because I don't need that job. I don't want to screen the tenant to make sure they're not scum. I don't want to.
Are you prepared to manage the manager and to,
well, yeah.
Do your due diligence on the manager, oversee them?
Sure.
I think there are good
Like
property
look into
managers.
the manager before I hire him to know that I'm
Yeah.
not hiring some
Well,
fly-by-night company.
No, that's
or-
probably not going to happen, but getting references.
It did happen.
Yeah, it has happened, as you know, in Eugene
Well, sure,
in a big way.
There was a property, wasn't there a property manager around here lately that got sued for not paying their?
Well, he's
in
in
prison,
the slammer right
actually.
now.
Yeah.
There's a
Let's-
Ponzi
let's
scheme
put it
he's
like
running.
this, I don't want that dude. So,
I would,
mean,
you definitely want to,
But
want to
there's big
manage them,
property
and
management companies.
I wouldn't make my determination on price, because you get what you pay for. You might be able to get somebody who will do a 4% or a 6% job. I don't know if
Yeah,
you want
right,
that
I mean,
person
Yeah,
that will
most
do
of
that.
it's like, from what I've heard, 8%'s fair.
Yeah, even 10% on a house.
10%
Yeah,
on a
and then it goes down as you have more properties or
Because I mean,
multifamily.
like my Airbnb, I have a property manager in Florence, I don't need that job.
Yeah.
That's her job.
Right.
No.
Now, we're not totally against third property management
So-
because you want, your primary job is to find properties and to find money.
Right.
So as you build your portfolio, though, you might want to consider hiring within your company or creating a company that you have somebody also doing not just contracting work, but maintenance, property management. We have some folks, as we start small, obviously, and we sometimes hire folks who can do double duty. They do both the property management and they're handy at maintenance. You can find folks like that who can do
like
both.
for an apartment building type thing.
Yeah,
like
yeah,
super-
small multifamilies, yeah. So, every situation is different and we wouldn't, bring the house down on third-party property management necessarily, but we have rarely had a good experience over time with property management. I think Eugene is actually, most of the property management companies are fairly good. What they tend to do, though, I would say they tend to under-rent properties. Property managers, it's an easier job if they under-rent because they can rent them quickly, and it doesn't matter if they rent it for $1,200 or $1,350 because to them, 10% of it makes hardly any difference between the two. So you'll find that market rents, amateur property management is under-renting properties. Just take that to the bank. You're an amateur property manager if you're under-renting your property. You're a amateur property manager if you're renting to family. Or if you're doing informal rental agreements, or if you don't know the basics of the Oregon Landlord and Tenant Act. Those are being very amateurish. Well, I tend to think property managers, as a whole, tend to under-rent properties. And they do so, I don't know, I think it's subconsciously, but I think because it's just easier to get them rented that way. You want to rent at market rates. And you want your properties to be looking good and to rent at the top of market rates. People will pay good money for quality. And you want those kind of people in your properties. Renting properties at the highest level you can rent them at allows you to keep them fixed up. It's not because you're a greedy landlord. It's because you want to continually improve that property. And you want the quality of person to match the quality of property that you have. Yeah, Aaron.
I've been hesitant to do buy and hold because I don't want that job of, the maintenance. But then I've also had a little bit of hesitation because this is my fortune here. And I'm letting somebody that I don't know go in there and they can do a whole lot of damage.
Yeah.
I've seen it happen. And how do you safeguard yourselves with that?
Screening and higher deposits and cosigners.
And then do you do checks on that property periodically?
It's a good idea.
We do annuals. Our college students usually get quarterly inspections. We have a really on the ball. Well, I mean, we have the luxury. We're sitting here. We have a property management staff that that's their full-time job is managing Bill's portfolio. So
So yeah, we have generally, I mean, our demographic is sophomores and juniors, for crying out loud. We're going to be looking at the properties on a regular basis, So, not a bad idea. Yeah.
Where do you guys find the majority of your deals right now? What marketing source?
in Oregon, most of our deals are coming from distressed borrowers, and they're unique situations. Basically, maybe trying to get on title so we can have a right of redemption on like a judicial foreclosure that's happening, or negotiating a short sale. That's our distressed sellers in Oregon is our best place. In our other markets, I mean, the MLS is still a key for us there. It's still key for us here. I mean, we still buy off the MLS here. And then just the direct to seller marketing, and finding landlords who don't want to be landlords anymore, buying their property, distressed borrowers, people with houses that aren't very well taken care of that we've noticed and send a letter to, that kind of stuff.
And one other thing I would mention that I kind of short shifted before, finding an investment-minded real estate agent. Oh my gosh, what a gold mine. A person who isn't trying to get you into the property because they know you're a volume buyer and you'll deliver when you find the right property. It's got to be bought at a wholesale price. And they're not going to say, well, if you come up to this, maybe you can get it, kind of thing. They're not pushing you that way. They're kicking tires all day long because they know your criteria, they know you'll close, they know you'll come back, and they're investment minded themselves. Maybe they even buy investment properties themselves. And they're out on the hunt for you. Boy, to find people like that, and we found a few people, I could probably say 5 people like that at most. But we love investment minded brokers, just love them. Yeah.
Kind of jumping back to an earlier question, expanding on it. So what would your opinion be on, you have good tenants in a property, do you keep raising the rents on them, or do you kind of give them a little bit of a pass on the rent hike because they've been such good tenants?
We don't jump them. Like, say somebody's under rented and markets come way up. If they're good tenants, we don't try to get them out. Yeah. We do most of our places are on a lease and we raise rents every year. Not huge increases. The only time we ever really ask people to leave is when they're just not following our rules, or if we really need to get in and make a big overhaul because basically we need to kind of change the configuration of the rental so that we can increase the value and increase the rents. But we don't, I know that there's a lot of laws happening to try to prevent people from kicking them out to raise the rents. We're not doing that.
I was just going to say, I think it goes both ways, that good renters want good landlords too, and if you're keeping the place well maintained and fixing stuff and you're responsive, that they don't mind paying a little more because they know what they're going to get elsewhere. It's going to be
very good point. Very good point.
Thank you very much, Bill.
Yeah.
We've been talking for 2 hours. Wow. And do you have any last remarks?
That was too long.
Thank you. Please.
you're going to be around here a little
We
bit?
will be.
Yeah, all right, thank you.
Yeah.
All right, class adjourned.